because life is full of distractions. Life wants to distract you. Most of your life, really most of your life, except when you go to sleep, is full of stuff trying to get your attention, right? When you walk throughout your own home, there are advertisements that you brought into your house of things that want to get your attention. You know, I know when I used to go shopping for my mom for like Thanksgiving, and we're making macaroni and cheese, right? Just macaroni and cheese. Don't bring back that off-brand noodle, right? I want this brand because that's the brand we use. Now, you know, the store brand was one thing, but there were about 3 or 4 other big name brands, but that was hers. I want this one. And when I walk through the house, that's what I see. So now, I'm older. If I'm going to make something, I don't want that brand. Put that back. It may be cheaper, may be on sale. Got to have this one because it's got to taste right. So we always go with what's been advertised to us, just the way life is. And that's that's good business, right? But all these companies and all the things around us are really giving us a story. When you go to a company website, they tell you about their history. They tell you how they were established. Why? So that you can have a relationship with them. I like their story. I like what they are about. I give them my money because, and you fill in the blank, right? You take Pepsi and Coke. You got people passionate about either. They don't care. They just want you to buy the stuff, right? But you go to war over it. No, this one better because of that. No, it ain't. I'm from up here. This is what we drank when we were little. Okay. And then you got the person who comes out of the woodworks on, Big K or whatever. Anybody drinking that? Right? But that's what they grew up on. So that's what we think about, right? KC Cola, that's what we had. Like, how old are you? Right? So we have to think along those lines because that's the story that we're given. Well, where I'm going with this is your life is essentially a commercial. Whether you want it to be or not, you are advertising something. We all are. Now, we can say, no, I ain't advertising that. You are advertising something. Jesus said you're the salt and you're the light. So if you're the salt and light, you shining. What are you shining about? Now, our life is like a movie trailer, right? Y'all know what the trailer is. Trailer is the advertisement. You looking at TV and they got a new movie coming out. They're going to show you something to make you come see it. That's the movie trailer. So we all live this little mini trailer. But people don't really get to see the movie until they start to have a relationship with us. So what is your movie really about? Is your movie living up to the trailer? There are very few trailers that I see that are bad. There are some that are pretty bad. You're like, man, I ain't going to see that. I don't know what that's about. But then most of them, they're going to show you some good parts of the movie. You're going to be like, man, we got to see that. And then some of them, you go to the movies or you buy the DVD or you use your streaming services or however you get your movies. Some of y'all ain't quite legit, but however you getting it, you watching it. So, when you watching the movie, after you done seen the trailer, when it go off, some of y'all like, man, that didn't live up to the trailer. The only thing good in the movie was on the trailer. I thought that was just an inkling, a nice little advertisement for a good movie. But I'm disappointed in what I just saw. Then other times we see it, man, that lived up to it. Y'all got to see that. That was good. So what about you? Is your life living up to what you're advertising? Are you walking the way that you talk? Are you doing the things that you say you're going to do? Are you really the person who you say you are? Well, it really depends on one thing about the movie, and that's who's writing the story and who's directing the movie. Because, see, anybody can make a good trailer, but it takes a lot of money and a lot of time to make a good movie. So who is writing the story? Now, many times we'll say, well, I'm writing the story. This is my life, right? And when we write our own story, right, when we're writing the story, we're talking about our life. But we are the ones with the pen. And if we're the ones with the pen, I'm always the hero. I'm always the one who's in control. And if you ask me to tell you what happened, I may tell you what happened, but I'm going to put a little flavor on it. I'm going to say a little something. And so then they said this to me. And I said, and when I said what I said, everybody got quiet. Everybody looked at me. And truth be told, ain't nobody pay attention to the words you said. And the person who was looking at you was barely paying attention, but you had to make a point. They listened to what I said because essentially this is my story. This is what I'm talking about. This is me. And I want to show you the best me. I'm the one writing this story. So anytime I tell the story, it's got to be good. It's got to be on point. I got to give you a trailer that's going to make you want more. And if I'm telling you something that happened in my life and you look uninterested, I'm going to have to sprinkle a little something else on it to get your attention. Oh, no, they ain't never seen nothing like what I had on. Really? Where you get these clothes? Macy's, but that's beside the point. It's the combinations that I used that really threw them off. I was killing them with what I had on. Everybody probably enjoyed your peach suit, but it was all right. But you're going to go a little bit further. That's how we tell stories. That's how we enjoy sharing. The people who tell the best stories are the people who are more animated, who give you more detail. But to be honest, it probably didn't happen exactly the way that they went. If you ever really want to know if somebody's telling you a good story, talk to somebody who's been in an accident before. If you ever talk to somebody who's been in a car wreck or they done fell down, it's a 15-minute story. Now, last time I seen an accident, it'd probably be over in about 2 seconds. But man, they were driving and it slowed down and I was spinning. I was just looking. I saw the lady's face looking at me while I was spinning and she eyeballed me. She said, "Oh, no." And you just got all this detail. I'm like, man, all that happened in a span of 2 seconds. You know, time slow down when you're in an accident. That's what they tell you. And I've been in a few. But that's what you tell people. You go a little bit on because you want this something dramatic that happened to you. So you got to put some flavor onto it. So what I'm telling you is when you have the pen, you are going to write the best trailers. But what really happened? Who are you really? What did you really do? Well, a lot of times what needs to happen is we have to give up a little bit of control. We have to allow somebody else to dictate. Now, here's essentially what I want you to understand. This is the building block to the series, so you know we gotta showcase what we're talking about here. Your life is a story. Your life is really words. Because if you're not around, how do we talk about you? I remember when. Remember the time when. When we went here, you fill in the blanks on who this person is because they're not there through storytelling. So I want to tell you about my friend. Well, how do I tell you? I tell you about situations we've been in. I tell you about our past. I tell you about something they told me. And you get to understand them through the stories. If somebody's passed away, how do we remember them? Through the stories. Their life is essentially a story. So your life is a story. Jesus' life was a story. It said the Word was with God in the beginning. And we know Jesus to be the Word. So he's essentially living God's Word. So who do we allow to write our story? Go to Hebrews 12:2. Hebrews 12:2. It says, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. The next version, King James Version, I want to read that for you too, because that's the one we're probably more familiar with. It says, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Now, the word author comes from a Greek word meaning that we get the word architect also from, but it means creator, okay? Now, what is a creator? A person who's in the art of building something, constructing something, putting something together. So he is the author of our story. Of what story? Our life story. Now, I know here it says faith, but if you go to 2 Corinthians 5:7, 2 Corinthians 5:7 says, for we live by faith and not by sight. So if he's the author and the finisher of our faith, and we live by faith, essentially he's the author and the finisher of our life story, because that's what we live by. Y'all follow me? So the root word that we just talked about of author, we get the word author, which is a book author, and architect, which is a person who builds. So essentially what we're saying is he's the author from a word perspective, but he's also the author from a building perspective, or an architect. Now, how does he do this? He uses what he has provided. He uses the resources that he has provided in order to build who we are. Go to Psalms 139. I'm going to read 1 through 6. Psalms 139. You have searched me, O Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. So he knows what he's working with. He knows who you are to build you in the way that you need to be built. Whenever you talk about a contractor, my dad's a contractor, and I know some of you are pretty handy as well. When you are going to build something, you got to know what you're working with. I've seen him build a house. That wasn't there. There was nothing there. Next thing you know, there's a house there. There's a shed there. If I called my dad and said, hey, I need to build a shed. If I called my cousin and said, hey, I want you to help me come build a shed. Notice two different things. One, when I call my dad, I say I need to build a shed. That means he going to really do it. When I call my cousin, you need to help me build a shed. Two different questions. Y'all got to pick up on that. So when we talk about building this shed, I need to let them know a few things. Is it a wooden shed? Is it a metal shed? What materials we using? Where are you building this thing? Are you building on the slope? Now, if they show up to my house and I got some metal, I got some wood, and I live in a swamp, I don't know what you want us to do, right? Now, it can be done, but that's going to take a whole different plan of action. Now, if you live on a flat surface and you're going to build it in the driveway, oh, that's going to be easy. We got something. What I'm telling you is they need to know what we're using to build this shed. I just can't say I'm building a shed and expect somebody to come up here and, oh, there you go. What are you working with? What tools do we have? What kind of materials are we having? What foundation do we have? There's a lot of questions that have to go into this simple shed. And that's with anything. I want to put up a fence. Is it ground level? What materials you using? What kind of fence? A metal fence, a wooden fence, an aluminum fence? What we doing? He needs to know what he's working with. What's the same thing with God? When he's building something, what are you providing to him in order to build what he needs to build? You need to know what you are, and you need to provide him full access to you in order to construct the best story possible. Y'all follow me? So when we talk about who Jesus is, in John 1:1, we just referenced this, but it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. These are words. He is who he is. He is who he says that he is. I don't care how hard you try. If I ask you who you are, tell me everything about you, I guarantee you it's going to be days where you are not that. Because a lot of times we don't really know who we are. Most of the times we know who we want to be, who we strive to be, who we try to be, who we desire to be, who we imagine ourselves as. But we really don't know who we are. Because so many times we falter from really what we want to be. And we don't want to tell people who we really are because some of the things that we share, we don't like. There are some parts of the story that we don't want to share, that we don't want to put out there. When you see somebody write an autobiography versus somebody else writing a biography about them, you get two different stories. Because with the autobiography, I may tell you about this story, but I'm going to gloss it over to make it not as bad as it really sounds. But when a person's writing about me, they're going to give you the real detail. I might not even like it. So we have to be willing to give God everything. See, here's the thing about a good story. When you're in high school, you remember this. It has 5 essential parts. It's got a plot. What's the story about? What are we talking about here? Give me some context. It's got a setting. Where's the story taking place? We in the field? We in the city? Where we at? It's got characters. Who are the people this story is about, right? Then it's got a point of view. Whose perspective are we looking at? You can read a story about a central character, but it's talking from the perspective of all the other people who are around this person. But then you can get a book about the person talking to you themselves, right? And we got some conflict. Doesn't mean it has to be bad, but we got to get something going on in this story to make it interesting. Otherwise, what are we talking about, right? And within the plot itself, we got other pieces of the story. We got an exposition, which is just a layout, right? Then we got a rise in action. So you see something coming and it's building up. Then you got the climax. This is the main meat of the story. Oh, this is what we get to. They finally found out. Then you kind of work your way down into what's called a falling action, right? And then we have a resolution. Okay, how does the story end? Some of them end like, that's it? Give me more, right? And others end on a good note. Oh, that was good. So all of these are essential to the story. But when we do the writing of our own life, we don't think in these terms. We think of exciting things, right? What's the big parts? If I ask you how your day was and nothing happened, you'll say, it was all right. If I asked you your day was and somebody came in the office and said something a little reckless and you went off, oh, let me tell you what Sharon did today. You ain't going to believe this. Now, you know who I'm talking about. You know Sharon, right? Yeah, I know Sharon. So you know how she been acting all week. And I told you that was going to happen. I know. What happened? Well, she walked in there and I could look at her eyes and I knew it. I knew it was going to happen today. And when she walked in there, boy, I was ready. I sat there and I turned around in my chair. And I looked at her. I said, oh, here you go. And you know what she did? What she do? First, she looked at me. Then she said, no, she did. Yes, she did. And what you do? I stood up. You stood up? Now, all this probably took 15 seconds. And Sharon probably just looked at you and said a little something. And you said, I thought that's what you were going to do. And she walked on about her business. But to you, we sitting here 30 minutes later over dinner, and you done gave me every detail. Because you had something exciting to tell. And guess what? It felt good, every piece of it. But that's how we tell our life stories. We talk about it in that way. But you know what? God's stories don't really go that way. A lot of times it's a slow build-up. It's a slow work. It's a slow process. Sometimes it can be a little bit of boring to talk about. I went to church and I learned about God. All right. All right. But that was what you needed. So when we look at who's writing the story, we have to think about we're always the main character in our story. We're always something. When we build our story, it's centralized around us. See, when you build a story, you have to storyboard. You have to whiteboard it. You have to put it out there because you are the central character. Now, you dictate how you feel. You dictate who you interact with. You dictate what resources you use in order to accomplish what you're going to accomplish. And guess what, people? You do this every single day. You start out your life already laying out how your day is going to go. And then at the end of your day, when you lay down, you think back on how your day went. And in some of those instances, you have regrets. I wish I wouldn't have said that. I wish I wouldn't have did that. I wish I would have did it differently. Next time, I'm going to do this differently. Only for next time, you do it the same way. How you interact with this person, how you interact with that person, how you share your life with this one versus that one. What kind of mood you in? Am I mad? Am I sad? Am I disappointed? Am I just blah? You are the writer of the story because the story is about you. Now, here's the thing about our story. When we do the storyboard, which is what you see, we planning it all out. We do that from an imaginary standpoint. We use what we have, but we can only go as far as our imagination takes us. Well, if this happens, I'm going to do this. If I see them there, I'm going to do this. You ever notice when you got a little conflict with somebody, you just put yourself in a situation. You may be headed to the store. They don't even live around you. But if I see them in the store, if I'm walking down the aisle and I see them, I got some words to say. Now, chances of them be there is very small. But you done laid it all out. You go to sleep thinking about, ooh, that's going to be good. Could they do this? I'm going to do this. If you got a family event, I wish they there. I hope they there. Soon as I walk in, I'm going to approach them. And when I say this, they going to say this. You done mapped out their line and your line. You done wrote it all out. And when they do this, oh, boy, I'm going to do this. It's all in your imagination. And it's going to escalate it. In your mind, it's done got good. And you always winning. You always the champion of your imaginary story. But you ever notice how your imagination never really comes into reality? Because you build so much on it, it never really comes to fruition. Because this is just your imaginary world. When in reality, you got a lot of other things that you need to be thinking about. But in your world, you're only thinking about these key things. You're thinking more about the person you have conflict with than the people who are around you that's trying to love on you. Because that's what's important today. And we spend a lot of time thinking about things that really don't benefit us that much. But they feel good to think about, and they're what's bothering us right now. Because, why is this? We are the central character. And whenever you are the central character, you're going to go off of how you feel. I feel this way. I don't like this person, so they're going to dominate your thoughts. But there are other people who really need your attention. This could go on for years, people. Some of y'all have been there. Some of y'all are there now, right? We dominate our thoughts based upon what we think and we imagine. But in Ephesians 3:20, it says, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine, according to his power that is within us. When we start to figure it out, and we take ourselves from being the central character, and we make the central character about God. So even though this is my story in God's book. So we have to think about who is writing the story. If we let God write the story, but he's writing about us as a part of his story, now we can start to see our life change and do the things that we need to do. Well, how do I allow God to write my story? How do I allow him to be in control? I'm glad you asked that. Let's go back to Ephesians 2:10. It says, for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. So not only does he have words, but he's the architect. We're his handiwork. We have to allow him to build us. To build what? To build our relationships, to build our goals, to build our resources, to build who we are essentially day to day. Because if we can allow him to build us, if we can give him the pen to allow him to write it out, to allow him to develop the story, to allow him to build up where the climaxes are, then the outcomes will always be good. They will never have to be imaginary. People, there are things that you want. There are things that you need. There are things that are in your life right now that you feel you can't live without. When the big numbers were up on the board of the lottery, and those of you who played, hey, more power to you. But it's hard not to play the lottery and not imagine winning it. But I can tell you, it's a lot of disappointed people in the world. First thing you saw, Florida. God. They ain't got a shot. Florida. Grocery store in Florida. What's the chances of that? But notice how you don't play. Now, I don't know how many of y'all are millionaires in here. And if you are, more power to you. I don't know how many of y'all are multimillionaires in here. And if you are, more power to you. But it's kind of strange to me that we don't play the lottery. Well, man, ain't nobody playing for no 20 million. I need at least 500 to get this dollar. Now it's 500. Oh, $1 billion. Oh, I got to play now. But when it was 20, and you don't need no $20 million. That little chump change, right? What's the purpose of putting down $2 million on $20 million? But if it get up to $1 billion, the line out the door. That don't even make sense. We could all use $20 million, I'm sure. But it's the way we think. Because with $20 million, they're going to take half. Only 10. I might still have to work a little bit for this insurance at least. But with $1 billion, oh, I'm stepping off in there tomorrow big time. You know what you can do with this job. I got $1 billion. I don't need health insurance. I don't need nothing you got. And I can stand you being mad at blacklisted. Oh, you going to please blacklist me because I got some things to say. Oh, I'm walking in the office. I'm breaking glass because I can pay for it. Here, fix your door. I can't do that with 10 because I still might need some help later on down the road. That's how we think. I done laid all this out. I know what I'm going to say. As soon as I see the numbers, oh, crank the car up. I got some stories to tell you how I really feel about you. But when we think about who we are, that's all imaginary. We got to live in reality. Now, you may have big success, and I wish the best for you. But when God is the author of your story, there is nothing this world can give you. I don't care how much money you got. I don't care what raffle you win. That relationship will not get fixed through the lottery. That relationship won't get healed through a raffle. You can win as much as you want, but you won't win people. You won't win happiness. You won't win joy. You won't win peace. All that belongs with God. So when you give him the pen and allow him to start writing your life, you will see how great he really is. That is the only way you're going to see how great he really is, when you give yourself up to him. Because everything else you've been doing up to this point has been somebody else's story. You've been talking about how good he was to other people you know, or to Noah, or to Moses, or to his disciples. What about you? Allow him to write your story and see how great it will be. Notice that although you have conflict, when you give him the pen, the author's going to make you come out great. Notice how when you saw no way out, when you give him the pen, all of a sudden exit starts coming up in your life. Notice how even though you did your best and you say this is the best outcome, when you give him the pen, all of a sudden it got a whole lot better. Notice you saw your story ending this way because this is the best it's going to end. Okay, everybody looking good. We did all right. We made it to the finish line. Had a pretty good life. But when you give him the pen, he said he is the finisher of your faith. Do you think God, of all people, God will not finish you on a high note? Do you think he will not write you as a champion? Do you think he won't write you as the best that you could be? Did you think that when somebody gets to the end of your book, if they allow God to write the book, that it's going to end with the, No. God is the ultimate author. He's the best writer there's ever been. And if you give him the pen to your life, you mean to think it's going to end on a bad note? You're going to end with like, that's it? I don't even know what happened. I don't even know. I ain't going to buy this no more. I don't want to see that. It said he is a testament in your life. So when you tell people about him through you, other people going to want to join in. Now, why would I want to join in on a book that's not even good? But I won't join in with you always writing the story, because the only thing you telling me is, oh, Lord, this life's so hard. I suffer so much, but God is good all the time. And all the time, God, oh, Lord, oh, Lord. Oh, well, when I get to heaven, I'm going to have me a mansion and everything going to be all right. Ugh. Take your little short story and go. I don't want nothing. No, man. You can keep that. That's horrible. Slinging them old spirituals, and I love them, but they sure sound like work. Anytime I hear them, I say, boy, that just feel like I need to go pick something up and get busy. I can't sit in the house and just listen to that in the background. Oh, sound like labor. And I love my ancestors, and I get why we did it, but that ain't all we had. That's not all we have is sadness and suffering. We got joy. He talks about joy. He talks about peace. He talks about understanding. And if I can get all that, that's a good story. I started here, It looked like it was getting worse. And at some point it took a turn. And that turn started to happen, and that turn kept happening throughout my life. And nobody knew how it happened. You didn't know. You thought you had my story written. You thought you had seen it before. Because that's what everybody says. Oh, when this happened, that's it. There's no coming back. But God. When you have God in your life. When I said, you know what? You read my story. And I know it looked a certain way up to now. That's because I've been writing this story. But at some point, maybe around chapter 8 or chapter 9, you're going to start to see a transition. And you will start to see another introduction to the story. And it'll say, hey, somebody else picked up the pen. Oh, where's this character coming from? It's a new central character to the story. I thought I was reading about Reggie, but all of a sudden, this is God's perspective on Reggie. And then now God is saying, but I took him here. And I did this for him. Oh, hold on, this third person. I thought we was first person. No, you was first person up to chapter 8. But then when it changed to third person, when you start seeing another person talking about me, when you start seeing God light shining on me, and you say, yeah, he messed up, but I still love him. Oh, but yeah, he messed up, but I still care for him. I said I'd never forsake him. He turned away and thought he was by himself, but he didn't know I was there till he looked up and he said, oh, Lord, you are there. And then you start to see, man, this is a good story. And wait till you see the end. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm using myself. The end ain't going to happen soon. Don't you put that on me. But wait till you get to the end if you're around to see it. Oh, the story going to end fantastically well. Why? Because not only did God never forsake me, but Reggie never forsake me either. So that is the thing. I'm not going to turn my back on God. He ain't going to turn his back on me. So when we go through this life, my life, it may be my life, but I'm not writing it. It may be my life, but I'm not in control. It may be my life, but I'm not the central character. He's the central character. So anytime I interact with my kids, God helping me. Anytime I interact with my wife, God help me. Anytime I interact with y'all, God help me. Y'all think this is me talking? I don't know how to do this. It's all God. So when God takes you from this place to this place, it's his story, but it's your role in his story.